think I did that right. I don't know why. This is funny every time. Good afternoon. Good afternoon. Oh, I didn't invite you, Misty. I'm sorry. I thought I was doing it. I'm going to try it again. Invite. Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for showing up. We're going to have a good conversation with Mrs. D Supreme. If I can get her on live. Get me started. Did you see, Misty? Misty, you have to request. Oh, you have to request. But I did it. I think I did it right this time. I invited her. Hopefully I did it right. Good afternoon, everyone. Ah, what do you mean you don't see it? What do you mean? I am, let me see. Well, you have to request at the bottom. Okay. I'll try it one more time. Black clit. How fat and black is that clit? Let me see if I can help. Because, you're trying to get me to. Oh, that's not on me. That's on you. It's saying you're unable to join, Misty. Hi, Star. Let me see if I can see what's going on. Try to get Miss D on this call. What's going on? Let me move this down. Request to be on the live. Well, you have to make a request, Miss D. Sorry. Star, how are you? Let's see. It's science. Did it happen? No. I did accept it. I think it's you, Misty. I have to tell you, I didn't consent to accept. It's not doing it. Let me see if this will work. Uh-huh. Okay. All right. Yeah. So that's working on that end. Yeah, I don't know why it's not accepting you, Miss D, because I just accepted me. Oh, your sister is saying maybe check your settings, Miss D. I don't know. But until then, I guess we're going to just have a chat. Yeah, because it's not letting Miss D in. And, oh, you know who we're going to get in while we're waiting? This. Maybe we can get that person in while we're waiting. Oh, you just going to say no to it? Okay. Let's see. No? Maybe we can get another Queen Supreme. Oh, I guess not. Anyway, thanks for everybody. You know what's funny? But thanks for everybody to coming, and I know you all are here for Miss D because you're not here for me. Miss D is the star of the show. Let me see if I can try it again. I know it's working because somebody else just declined my invite, which is cool. I was checking. Let me see. I am excited also. I am excited. Miss D, I think you should, like log off and then maybe try to come back on. Maybe that'll help. Maybe that'll help. But in the meantime, I'm not sure if folks know, if you're not part of BLX's newsletter, I sent out a kind of an update for what we have in store. It says you're unable to join, Misty. What we have in store for 2025, we have some collaboration happening with House Supreme, and And so we're working on some workshops, um, some more lives that I'll be doing in the new year with some more title holders. We're going to take a civics class together. We are working on the workshops we're working on will be taking place in New Jersey. So that should be fun to try to, build some community over there in Jersey. Um, and, got some things planned. I'm quite excited about it. I'm already exhausted, but I'm quite excited. Also, I want to take this time and this to say, oh, wait a minute, to say that folks should also um, be making sure that they get some rest. Got some things planned. I'm quite excited about it. Everybody, it's Mrs. T.
I don't know how to do this Instagram. I'm still learning Instagram, and I had the permissions turned off on my phone. So I had to go in and work with the permission, the camera. Okay, video, audio. I'm like, oh goodness. So I'm not on the computer right now. I'm on my cell phone.
Oh, well, yeah, right? Okay. Well, first of all, you know what it is? That's what it is. You can't be on Instagram doing a live on your computer. You have to be on a device.
Okay, see, I didn't even know that. I should have looked that up ahead of time, but thank you for letting me know, because I'm not an Instagram person.
Yeah, that happened the last time when we were talking to Zodiac. Zodiac, because Zodiac was on their computer, and we were like, then Zodiac finally said, let me just use my phone. And then it was like, so I remember, yeah, you have to be on your device. But anyway, you're here.
I made it. I was here. I was just trying to get in.
You're here. Let's take some deep breaths. I know, girl. I know that must have been, Okay. I know, and everyone in the chat was trying to help. Star was like, go to your settings. And he was like, we're excited for you. And it's like, hi, Bissette. How are you? Okay, so I hope everybody has their tasty beverage, their cigar, or their smoke of choice. We have the opportunity this afternoon to be in conversation with Mrs. D from the House Supreme. Ms. D, you want to introduce yourself or say a little bit about yourself? And by a little bit, I mean we only have an hour.
I know, and I have to jump on something right now after this. So I only have an hour, actually less than an hour now. But I'm Ms. D Supreme. I am, who am I? What do I do? I'm a leather woman, and it's a lot of stuff. I'm here with people ask, what do you do? I facilitate discussions and conversations around consent, and facilitate couple therapy workshops.
Mm-hmm. And that's why we're having you this afternoon. And it's just going to be like a regular conversation. No pressure. I would first like to understand how you got involved in wanting to bring consent to the masses. And by the masses, I mean like community. Mm-hmm. How did you get involved?
Awesome. Like, there was more so me learning more, like getting into community, learning consent and how people in BDSM and kink do consent. As a health educator, we have our ways of doing consent, but then it just expanded upon the language I already knew about consent. So when I started working on my own personal boundaries, I learned that my boundaries were very poor. So I didn't even start trying to help other people. It was more so helping myself. Like, how do I strengthen my boundaries? How do I better in community, the community I love? But I also realized that a lot of past traumas or ways I grew up or just the way you're socialized was affecting the way I showed up in community with other people. So that's where I started at, just taking classes for me, learning about myself. I went to a cuddle therapy workshop, and it was just me learning just about different things. Like, let me see what this is about. Let me see what this is about. And it was very powerful for me and learning about just saying no. And some of the ways that they taught the class and the skills that you learned, I wanted to do it for other people, because it's not just me who's out here who worked with these boundaries that could have been better. I wanted to help others. So that's how I started.
Let me ask a question. You said about saying no. Is there an art to saying no?
Of course. I mean, but no is still just good enough. But when we want to have, like, no is an answer. No, you can say no. There's an art to no. Thank you for asking me. Um,
Mhm.
no, you want to give the reason why. Maybe sometimes you don't want to give the reason. Maybe you're not in community with that person. So no is just good enough. But maybe if it's somebody who I want to remain in community with, maybe somebody who's a little bit closer to me, giving more information would help
Mhm.
understand why my no is a no.
You
It's
know,
not, it doesn't land.
I find it two things. One, you're breaking up a lot, but two, the second thing is, um, I always find it fascinating that people have to explain their no, right? Because if I had said yes, you wouldn't say, well, why are you saying yes? But if I say no, now I have to explain why I'm saying no. Why do I have to explain my no? If I don't have to explain my yes, why would I have to explain my no?
Is it,
That's just, I'm not asking you if
maybe
you have
that.
a,
Is it better if I'm moving further from the phone?
oh yeah, it is better.
Okay, so why are we explaining our no? You don't have to, like I said, but
Mm-hmm.
why? Like one of the skills that I do work on, like in public therapy sessions and like consent classes, is hearing no. How a lot of people, like, every people are really good at saying no. I'm good, I can say my boundaries, but graciously hearing the no. So sometimes, like, because we want to stay connected with people, like, I don't want to just cut that relationship off. You hear the no, like, I ain't
Mm-hmm.
never see the person for nothing again. But because
Mm-hmm.
we want, like, it's just a better way of building communication with the person. Do you have to do it? No, you're not. You don't have to explain it all. So that's
Mm-hmm.
what one of the things people sometimes they over explain and like, no, your no is good enough. Your
Yeah,
no
yeah,
is
yeah.
good enough. But
Mm-hmm.
sometimes, like, if you know, you have that sensitive friend and they can't take that, it's like, well, maybe because I know this about this person, I'm going to give a little bit more information.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Right. And sometimes your no doesn't mean no forever. It just may mean no for right now. Right. Just
Mm-hmm.
right now, I just got to where I just got to the play party. I just wanna socialize a bit. So no, not right now. Maybe ask me a little bit later.
But then
Doesn't mean
there's
like,
the thing that maybe too, because maybe it is definitely a no right now. You don't want them to keep coming back and asking you. So I'm like,
mm-hmm,
oh, sir, maybe you want to come with my ass? Can I say ass?
mm-hmm, mm-hmm,
But they ask you to come do this, and you're like, maybe, because maybe you are still thinking about it. So then I come back 5 minutes later.
Well,
Well,
I
you
think
said maybe, so.
yeah, I know, but I think that's why the no is better because
Mm-hmm.
maybe saying come and see me a little bit later, opposed to saying maybe, because
Right.
maybe for me may be an hour,
Mm-hmm.
but to you, your
And
maybe
that
be
person 5 minutes
5
from now is
minutes.
like, you said maybe.
5 minutes.
I saw you finish
Exactly.
that drink, so you ready now?
I know, and I don't want that because that's going to piss everybody off, right? So that's what I'm saying about the no. So you said you got into the consent thing really for your own self, and then
Mm-hmm.
realized you could bring this to the rest of the community. Where do you find? Do you find it? Have you come across instances where you'll create a workshop, like a consent workshop?
Mm-hmm.
Do you find that people aren't really interested in coming to something like a consent workshop?
Well, I think in general, the community doesn't want to come into a consent workshop because they feel they already know it. A lot of the skill, I mean, the information, I think a lot of people already know.
Mm-hmm.
Um, Practicing the skills, people need help with. So I think after they come to workshop, then they understand more like, oh, it's not just me giving definitions. Because we can know information, but until you're practicing it,
Mm-hmm.
or even if you're showing up, seeing other people who do struggle, maybe your consent practices down pat. Like I'm good, everything works inside of me, but seeing that these are people that you are in community with, that you're playing with who don't have good consent practices, maybe modeling it for somebody else would help. Um,
Mm-hmm.
so like I do guess people don't want consent. It's just like, oh, we already know that. But then sometimes that's why you slip it in somewhere else. You're doing a fireplace class and then let's slip in some consent here.
Mm-hmm.
You're doing interrogation class, let's slip in some consent here.
Mm-hmm.
So with anything you do, like consent is in there. So I feel like for people who do workshops, who present at workshops or teach other classes, just throw it in there.
Mm-hmm.
Like we still need it and have some way to practice it and model it for people, not just giving them the information.
Right. Right. And that is true. Oh, and I always forget to say this but I'm going to read this question. I think it's a statement rather. Also, there's different ways to ask for consent, which is why a workshop can be important. Yes, that is very true. I did a little workshop this weekend um, with Izuli at
I heard it
Rutgers,
was
and
great.
it was fantastic. Izuli is such a great teacher. Um, we were talking, and I was mentioning to someone, like giving an example, that we may be doing a bondage scene, right? I may be tying you up, and as I'm taking the rope around you, I may touch your breast,
Mm-hmm.
right? Just by the nature of what something is happening. It's not like I'm trying to violate your consent. It just happens because of the nature of what we're doing, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so that might have been in our conversation for negotiation, right? But that just happened to happen. So now do you go, and I was saying in the class, please don't go to the internet and put it on the internet that Sir Raven violated your consent. Just that when you can have a conversation with that person, right? So my question to you is, do you sometimes think that people get consent violation used with like an incident,
Yes,
right?
absolutely. Because and then a lot of times where it becomes tricky is that when we don't know the information, we're like, this person's consent violator. Now everybody's banned against this person. And I'm just a curious person. I'm nosy. I'm like, well, what was the consent violation? And when they explain it, it's like that incident, that person maybe needed more education, or maybe a conversation could have happened, opposed to just running with that information, and that person is now has this label on top of their head as a consent violator.
Mm-hmm.
Um,
Mm-hmm.
so,
Right.
so like that, it's helpful. I created a game for people to play so that we can like consent violation versus consent incident. So maybe some people could just start hearing that maybe some of the things that they already felt, or maybe they even went through, that was a thing. Because the intent versus impact is still there. The impact still is harmful. So the person who received the harm is still hurt. But maybe they actually understand the intent or have some conversation with the person, they may feel a little different.
Mm-hmm.
Or
Right.
you can move forward different. Maybe it's not going to change what happened, but you're able
Right.
to move forward different.
Right. And it is like that's why I use that example of using like rope, because sometimes when you're doing rope, you're wrapping people, right? And so you may be clothed and say, you're going to do this bondage thing. I'm going to have my clothes on. There's not going to be any sex. The nature of rope, sometimes you may rub somebody's, if they have breasts, people with breasts, right? You
Mhm.
may, you know what I'm saying? It's not a groping kind of thing. It's just the nature of what's happening. And so that's not to say that that person may not feel a way, because I don't want to take away the way that person feels, but
Mm-hmm.
it's the intent of me not doing something on purpose that we didn't negotiate. Sometimes things are just a mistake, and
Right.
sometimes a conversation is best to have. And at that point, you can really call and tap out, and then the scene is over, right? Because
Mm-hmm.
we can
Because you're
withdraw.
feeling this,
I
you're
can,
still in an emotional state that you cannot leave. So like maybe we cannot go on today.
right.
But maybe the conversation can have been had and you can still proceed. I've had it happen to me. I touched somebody's foot during the scene, like just moving around during the impact scene. And they have a rule about no feet touching. They didn't explain it to me. It wasn't part of the scene, but I did touch the foot. I'm like, okay, we had a conversation. It was fine. We moved on from it. But it could have been somebody else, and they could have been like, my feet is off limits. That's a trauma response. Miss D touched my feet.
Mm-hmm.
But she would have said, but it could have been that. But
Yeah.
then that's how easy some people make mistakes, and we need to talk about that as well. Because when we think about consent violations, and people are like, oh my God, consent violation, consent. I think the negative conversation of it makes people not want to admit when they do something wrong.
Mm.
I went to the Ethical Slut. They had a consent series, and we were talking about, it was for like transgressors, people who have done something.
Mm-hmm.
And then let's make it more like you have done something. What steps have you taken to make amends for it?
Mm-hmm.
Instead of just saying like I never did anything wrong in my life. We've
Yeah.
all done something wrong. We've
Exactly.
all crossed the
Exactly.
boundary. But what steps did you do? What did you learn from crossing that boundary?
Mm-hmm.
Like that's, I don't drink for that. Like because I did something or was trying to be more pushy when I was intoxicated. So for me, it's like I don't want to have ever take that risk again. Some people like, well, I know myself when I'm drinking. I know myself too, and I want what I want. So
Mm-hmm.
for me, I know that drinking is not allowed because I never want to be in a situation where I make somebody else feel uncomfortable. So it's like, was it?
Uh-huh.
Yes, it happened. Did we talk about it? We talked about it. Did we move past it? But what steps did I take? I stopped drinking.
Mm, mm-hmm.
So
Mm-hmm.
that was
Yeah,
my.
think
So
I think that sometimes people, that is true. Like, and I'm gonna admit, I mean, I say it sometimes, and some people might have heard me. Wait, I'm sorry. Let me read what um, I wish we were serious about all the consent violations and realize we don't know enough because we keep seeing this aftermath of our ignorance. Hey, ignorance, especially lack of care of following up when consent is violated. Ah, basically what you were kind of saying is to follow up, to do that follow up. Um, and then Handler says, I've met someone who violated consent via interruption of it. I hate when that happens.
but see,
Jesus.
this is why like, even people who have own dungeons or who run events should have like basic consent for everyone who comes to their event. That should just be a standard practice. Anyone who wants to come to my event, you take this class first, that you have a basic understanding of what happens. And I'm willing to teach that if you want me to. But
No, 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 no,
shameless
no,
plug.
no. I was saying I got some things planned for 2025, okay? But yeah, I agree with both of those statements. And like I was getting ready to say, I say jokingly, um, but really, it's true for me now because of how long I've been in the scene. And not to say that we didn't have problems and things like that before, but after the pandemic, it seemed to me that a lot of people were talking about consent violations because two communities converged
Mhm,
and did not converge well,
mhm,
right? And
mhm.
so I always talk about how language has meaning.
Yeah.
So I'm speaking to someone who's from the swinger community, and they were like, "Yeah, we're gonna have a play party," and I was like, "What do you mean by play? Because you're a swinger, and your play is different from my play." So I think I'm going to a play party,
Mhm.
right? And there may be some kink to it, but really it's fucking. And so now
Yeah.
my consent is violated because I'm thinking, well, wait a minute, like you would because we're using words differently. So
Yeah.
I say that I don't do pickup play the way I used to, even though I like pickup play,
Mhm.
because everyone's so quick to run and say my consent was violated, opposed to having a conversation. And so, I mean, it's a joke, but it's a joke. And it's a
No,
joke, but it keeps
that's something
getting.
that you did for yourself. It's like, okay, I'm going to back away from, playing with people who I may not know as well. Um, in the two communities, like I've worked a lot in the other community, like explaining different techniques to them, talking about, what we do in our community. And I can definitely tell the consent practices are different.
Mm-hmm.
But then, like for even each organization, we should know what are the consent practices for this place. Because like I went into the place not knowing, so I'm doing a scene, and then somebody pulled open their stuff, and then I'm like, whoa, that's not part of what I do. I'm sorry, there's no sex involved here. So
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
um, let me take my stuff. Oh, did I offend you? No, no. This is your community. I didn't ask the right questions, so I can put the onus on me. I didn't ask the
Yeah.
right question. I'm just going to take my belongings and go
Mm-hmm.
because this is what you do over here, but I'm going to go over here. I apologize. I apologize.
Yeah, right.
I do.
Because sometimes you just put it on you, and whatever. So there's two things. I want to read, especially because people will see that as an etiquette issue, but it is an issue with consent. That is very true. I think when people, like, I've been in places where people would walk through someone's scene or interrupt the scene or want to talk to the bottom or want to give commentary, while you're doing your thing and you and your bottom are in the zone and they're like, and yeah, that whip must really hurt and that whip must, like, stop talking.
I want to know what she getting.
You know what I'm saying? That is true. Yeah, that is true. And also to answer the question, pick up play is when you don't have a partner, or you may have a partner, and you may go to the dungeon and meet somebody and you are compatible. So it's like, I have a flogger, you like to get flogged. We may have a little conversation about consent and negotiating a little bit, and then we may have a little short scene, right? And so that's pickup play. Um, and even then, so that's what I was saying about pickup play. Like for me, I know how to do it, but it's not
Mhm.
me that I'm worried about.
Right.
It's the other person
Mhm.
that I don't want to say I don't trust, but I kind of
But
don't
you
trust
don't
that
trust
they.
them because you don't know them well enough to trust. So that is real. I don't. You don't trust that person right now. Because of what's happening, and that's valid, and that's your fear for that assumption. And I'm glad that you made that because of that it protects you. I'm not going to be
Mm-hmm,
out
mm-hmm,
there like for me, like certain things I won't do during pickup play. Well, there's a lot of things I won't do during pickup play. Um, but I already
mm-hmm.
know that going into it. So for each person, you should already have like, no, if you're going to do pick up play, what you are willing to do, what you're not willing to do. I know that you're going to scale it back at least 90%. Like you're not going to give 100% in the pick up play. You can
Exactly.
give them a little 10% taster. This is what you
Mm-hmm,
get. A little
mm-hmm.
just to scratch the itch. So nothing, there's no long lasting either way. So we're
Yeah,
just doing a little tickle tickle. And if you want some more, call me later, or we can
yeah,
have a,
right, exactly. And then we start building that
you can
rapport. So if I
build
see
up
the next,
to something, a more dramatic or intense scene.
yes, that is true. Can you? And I don't hear this often. I mean, I hear it in my circles. But can you give an example? Like sometimes people don't think that tops have their consent violated. When people think of consent violation, they always think of the bottom. And I'm using top and bottom, so please don't be funny. You know what I mean? They always think that the bottom is always the one that has their consent violated. Um, as we know, tops can have their consent violated as well. Do you see that in the scene in a way, or do
More,
you
I
talk about?
think more so like when you're pick up play, when you're hired to work somewhere, so somebody they treat you a little differently. So it's not like I'm working in this dungeon or working this event as the person. So it's like you're not a human. Give me what I want. Not taking into consideration. I have feelings too. I have my own limits. So we
Mm-hmm,
have to still
mm-hmm,
have a conversation. It's not just you write a list out and I dish it out to you. Um,
mm-hmm.
calling you honor if you don't want it. I'm a princess. You can call me that, but don't, ma'am, mistress. Did I say you could say that? Or even if I was a mistress, I'm not your mistress. So maybe those
Mm-hmm,
conversations, insisting on um, I'm being respectful, but I said not to do it.
mm-hmm,
So,
mm-hmm. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
especially with the one, especially the gimme, like you're just a kink dispenser.
A king dispenser. Yeah, right, exactly. I find that too sometimes. Well, I used to find it a lot in the past, I think, where people walk up to me and call me mistress or, goddess. And I'm like,
Mhm. Anything that makes their stuff tickle, but not yours.
right, exactly, right? Because you're doing that for you. And some people may not think that that's violating someone's consent, right? But also, if I introduce myself, like this has happened, I introduce myself. I say, my name is Sir Raven. Hi, how are you? Or you could just call me Raven. I always give a
Mhm.
person out. You don't have to call me Sir Raven. You can call me Raven. Or I've had people say, I would love to honor your honorific, but I can only call my sir. Okay, just call me Raven. It's fine. I'm not gonna, you know what I'm saying? Like, I don't want you to be uncomfortable, and I don't want to be uncomfortable either, right?
Right.
So, I always want to give grace to someone, because sometimes it's very hard to navigate, right? When you're first meeting a person, or when you're at a first play party,
Mhm.
and you don't know the etiquette, and no one has done. I guess they do that now. They used to have munches before the play party,
Right, yes.
and then you go to the munch and you learn a little something about like etiquette and these kinds of things and feel a little bit comfortable, and then you all went to the dungeon, right? And even then you still may do it may be a faux pas where you're not looking because it's dark and you're walking through somebody's scene, right?
Mhm.
Or you think you're whispering, but you're really not whispering, and everybody can hear what you're saying. um, and so you may think that the person's being rude when they turn around and they're like, could you shut the fuck up? You know what I'm saying? Like, shut up. So here's another question. When you you said you went to classes, so I'm assuming you're certified. Okay.
Okay, so at first, I just started going to classes. So that's just for basic information. Me learning. There's plenty of great classes out there, so you can get certification. But what I did, I wanted to do consent for kids. So that's where I started doing my certification for me to teach. So I started reading different books and learning more like about how to teach consent for children 2 to 10. And through those books, I started learning about other, but people are already doing this. So like, stop trying to recreate the wheel. That's when I got certified to actually teach for my certification to teach other people consent. So, right, you can get certification to learn consent, like one of the questions you asked about, like CPR certification. You can all get like lessons, get CPR certification. So like that's what I do. I'm CPR certified, but I also got an additional certification that I can teach CPR to other people.
Right.
So that's what I did with consent as well. So now I as well got my consent thing for me that I can practice it. I can safely do this amongst people, but now I have it so I can teach other people to practice consent as well.
I see.
And I'll do
Do you?
CPR certified.
Yes. And do you have to be? Do you have to have is it like a yearly certification that you have to keep renewing? Because things change,
Yeah.
right? Just like language changes, so things change. Do you have to get certified every year, every 2 years, or is it like one and
So
done?
with the one with Colorless, I had to get recertified for this one. Just because things change. And with Colorless, that is you're being certified to teach and facilitate consent boundaries and physical touch. So that one I had to get recertified. The other one I did not. With creating consent culture. But there's also like I'm still in progress with my education. So as I continue, I'm going to continue to get further certification. I want to be able to maybe I can help other people like with the CPR. And I can certify you to be CPR trained. And I want to certify other people to be consent trained. Like I don't have that certification yet, but that's with advanced education, which I'm continuing now.
So there's a question: where can one find a consent class like that? We're right here in.
Well, if you want to get certified to teach consent, is a different sort of. I can teach you consent definitely. I hold classes that are free. There's some that's would cost a fee. I do one-on-one classes. But through Consent Academy has very good education for personal consent as well as for organizations. The King Academy, they have very good frameworks as well if you're looking to establish frameworks for your organization. The Bonobo Project, trauma-informed consensual kink. I think was Coach Feline. She has a really good program as well. There's plenty of this. The education is there. Like I've taken all of them. Like, and because there's different ways to learn something. There's different ways to teach something. So it could be the same exact information that I already know, but maybe they're saying it in a different way. So like, I'm always want to continue taking the classes because it's like, oh, I love the way you said that, or oh, we did this embodied exercise, and I really felt that. Like, oh, maybe I can share this. Like I'll ask, like, can I use that part of my workshop? And they was like, yeah, just give me credit. I'm like, oh, then I could just add to something else I got going on. Or share something that I have. So like I continue, like these people, there's a lot of people out here doing the thing. So there's no reason why we don't have education. Look for it. And so, yeah, I'm here to help you. I don't know something, I probably know who do know it.
Are you able to offer your services like to organizations? Do you have something in place where you can offer, like for instance, at TESS or LSM or at Submit? Do you have
True, because I have samples for all these organizations. Like just for myself, like I started creating different like and someone told me just don't give it away. But but what I'm saying, like there's already people out here who have great. If you want to work with them, I can put you in contact with them to help structure your own organization's consent framework. What to do when a consent incident happens. So, because a lot of times what organizations are doing is something happens and oh shit, let's fix it now. So, or people don't even say anything because they don't know that they can. There's no process it's already written out. This is what we do. This is the practice that we have. These are the steps we're going to take. A lot of places don't have that. So when a person does get or feels something, maybe it's not even a violation. If you just feel like, I don't know what this feeling is, so I'm not going to even come back. But if you know there's something in place where I can talk with somebody, so even if it could be just my feelings, that I can feel like heard, seen, and validated to come back to this space. So like I said, there's some organizations who have this already in place. Some places don't. So I have created frameworks and assisted 2 people so far, but I have created samples for even the organizations that I know that don't have them.
Well, I think you mentioned something earlier about people who own dungeons should have something like this, so that when something, because for I feel comfortable, there have been some spaces that I don't go to because a consent violation has happened there, and they have not done anything to correct it. The person who owns the facilitation, the facility hasn't done anything I know of to rectify that situation. So now, because there are very few places here in New York that one can go to, that's one that's off the list, at least for me. Because if it happened there and you did nothing about it, I'm not going to spend my money there. And I am big on spending your money where your money is going to, you know what I'm saying, with intention. So it's interesting that when you say that there are organizations and or dungeons that should have like this kind of service, this would behoove them not to do it. Right? Because something may happen. You may not be like, oh, it's not going to happen here. But everybody said that. Oh, it's not going to happen to me. You know, and then it happens. So then what do you have in place, you know, for that? Are you, or do you have, and I agree, as you know, BLX, we don't give things away. I don't ask for things for free. So, you know, I mean, I ask for the lives free, but if you were teaching a class or whatever, I believe in paying Black and brown creators, educators for their labor. I have been in this game a long time and has given away a lot of stuff and never got paid, which is why I do BLX. So do you have
the first thing you did I had came through you for like teaching.
Say what now?
I said, I think the first time I got paid for teaching came you.
Yeah. This is true. So do you have a website, a program, all the things so that people can get in touch with you and or recommend you? And when wait a minute, I went to one of your classes at IMSL. Oh, I went to some of it. I went to some of it. It was very good. Are you doing the same class or something similar for IMSL this year? This coming year?
I don't think they have put their classes out yet, but I'm doing one for Beyond Leather. I will be at no, that's something different. So I have a few classes coming up. I have a link tree on my Instagram where you can see like what classes I'm offering and then what classes I already teach that like maybe it's nothing that is coming out in the community. But I have classes that I've done like that has nothing to do with kink, doesn't have anything to do with like consent is big. Like you could do what consent for the workplace. That's a big one. Just how do you have, you know, consent with peers is different than consent with your subordinates, about consent with maybe somebody who is an authority figure. So it's not just within people. Yes, on my link tree, you can find that out there. And I also teach consent with kids. So like youth after school programs. I have 2 young people with me right now that I'm training. When I teach, like for work, it's to have somebody experience. So I'm not a teenager anymore, even though I feel like it inside. I'm not. So just equipping these people for themselves, like it helped me. I think it will help them. It's beneficial for them per se, but then also to give to the community and have someone their own age out there. So on my link tree, you'll be able to see where I'm at. Also through my house page, the House of Supreme Queens on Instagram. My sister is really, they push out everything. They're really good at making sure that, you know, the whole house is supported. So they help there.
So you have programs where you teach consent, like Brown Bear Butcher saying, for all ages, right? So you have your children, the same children.
I mean, so for the children and the adult one is very similar. It's not like we're just, you know, sex can be, if we talk about sex, or we could just talk about just touching. So it's the same skills. We're just teaching it age appropriately.
Right.
So that's
Right. You have something for teens, right? You have
yes.
something for teens,
Well,
which, you know, go ahead.
I think teens are a little bit something different.
Hmm. I remember being a teen. That's why I'm asking.
And
When
that's never been my favorite group to work with. I'm admitted. Like I've done
please,
group ministry for years. I love my group. I love is tweens. I love the 10 to 13-year-olds, the people who are starting to just form their opinion. Young adults I'm working with now. I love young adults. The teenagers was just really like, I gotta really get to know you before I'm trying to teach you.
you know, in my profession, I love working with teens because I
Yeah.
remember being a teen. I
Mhm.
love working with teens. Those little ones, now,
Mhm.
you know, they like teasing and they're touching you and I mean, they're cute, right? But I think I like the teens better because they're not exactly tweens or children, right?
Mhm.
And they're not exactly adults. So they're in that
Right.
age where it's like in between, but it's called a teen, right? Where they still want to be treated like an adult, but they still have to understand sometimes that they are still children.
But
And
see,
so I
I think
like that.
that's maybe the teens back then. The teens today think they're adults. The tweens are the ones who I feel like what you just described fit that what you're saying.
No,
These
no,
kids,
I understand
they,
that.
they
No,
adults.
that's true. I think what I'm saying is I like the fact that when I work with teens and they want to act like an adult, I start treating them like an adult, and then they're like, "Why you treat me that way? Because you acted that way. So if you're gonna be about it, let's be about it." So you know, it's kind of like busting the
I
bubble
see, I
or doing
see.
a reality check of, you know, I'm not saying you're a child, right? I'm not saying that, but I'm also saying you don't have the responsibility of a Con Edison bill. Your rent
Right.
being, you know what I'm saying? You don't have, so you out here just wilding thinking and not really thinking about the consequences that may affect your life in the long run by an action that you take right now. And so that's why I like teens. You know what I'm saying? And
Mm-hmm.
yes, keep that energy. So I know I'm advocating for teens. Maybe I need for you to teach me a class, and I'll do consent for teens. I don't think.
Well, see, look, I'm gonna have these two people ready. I'm trying to push it for February for their first little. I gave a date because if you don't give a date, you ain't getting nowhere. Like February. So yeah, they could be your little assistants.
I'm just saying. I think and also when I think about, I think sometimes people hear consent, consent, consent so much that sometimes they become numb to
Mhm.
it. You know what I'm
So that's
saying?
why I think there's other ways to get the information in without it sounding like we're talking about consent. And that's I'm trying to do fun ways. And like it's the same information, same skills, but how can I package it so that it's palatable for you or that you'll want to have this in your organization?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Right, because it's interesting. Who was I talking to? Crackers Wax. I stopped her. But I was talking to somebody, and I was giving an example of like a spanking, like doing a spanking and asking and negotiating, because I think negotiation and consent goes hand in hand.
Mhm.
They're not the same thing. They're the same thing, but they do go hand in hand, right? So you're negotiating a spanking scene, and we talk about it, and I say, okay, you want this over the knee spanking, so you're gonna pull down your pants, and it's like, no, I didn't say I want to show my bottom, right?
Mhm.
And so I'm like, oh, okay. So then we get there, and I still want you to pull down your pants because you may have on your boxes, and you're not showing your bottom, but we didn't negotiate. And the way you negotiate is the way you don't get your consent violated. Not to say that it's foolproof, it's not,
Right.
but it's the way that you negotiate. Then we don't have kind of like confusions,
So then like,
right?
when we're talking about consent, like you said, that is a skill or a part of consent because how do we get to there? How do we get to the consent unless we negotiate?
Right.
Like we talked about like a simple handshake. Like I don't want a handshake. Maybe I want an elbow bump. Maybe I don't want to put my elbow out. You want to do a pound, or maybe we don't want to go around. Now we just want to say hello because
Right. Exactly.
but that's just
Exactly.
going into negotiation. But then also that communication. That's a skill that we're like, oh, I know how to talk. Do we really? Do we?
Yeah.
Because I've even had conversations when the person had something totally different than what I said. So I'm like, well, did you not hear right, or did I not speak it right? But then I'm the one communicating. So if they didn't get a clear understanding of what I said, then it's a breakdown in my communication. So
Mm-hmm.
these are skills that we work on to get better at, like to get to these consent. I feel like if we have more education around these things, we would have less consent violations or people with consent incidents. But
Mm-hmm.
these are the skills that we have to work on.
Mm-hmm. Right. And I think
Working on.
also,
It's not saying I took the class, I did it, I know it, and let's move on.
yes, exactly. Right now I did it and I'm good, right? It's like, no, you're not. And it is about communication because sometimes, like I said earlier, if you're coming from two different communities, what you call play is different from what I call play. So we're saying the
Absolutely.
same word, right? But it doesn't have the same meaning to different people. And so it's always good to listen, not to respond, but to listen to hear a person. And then what I do is I try to repeat it back. So am I hearing you correctly that you said X, Y, and Z? Because when I repeat it back, you may say, no, that's not what I meant. And so now we're having this conversation. And now we're getting some clarity. Opposed to saying, yeah, 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 yeah. That's what I meant. Uh-huh, uh-huh. And then we do it, and
And like I
and
said,
then
when I first started with my own boundaries and my skills, and it was like, well, how we keep getting in these situations? And it was more like, well, what questions are you not asking? I had a book I walked around with called my boundary book, and it just the top said, what am I not asking? So it's like, even in certain situations,
mm,
because I get upset and I knew who I am, so it's like, no, take a step back. We had a conversation, but maybe something that you're not asking. So I'm reminding myself, like, ask some more questions. There may be a question that you ain't asked that you don't know
mm,
about yet.
mm. Yeah,
So
uh-huh. Mm. I think also that brings up a really good point that when you are negotiating, like I was talking to the students, I was saying that we don't negotiate at the bar, right? We don't negotiate in a loud room. We don't negotiate over weed. Like we don't negotiate over those kinds of things. You negotiate in a neutral setting, like a diner.
mhm.
The old tricks are the best tricks. We negotiate in a diner. We don't go to someone's house to negotiate the thing that we want done. Right?
Mhm.
So we negotiate, and also depending on the dynamic or the relationship or what's going on. Like I said, I am just Raven. You and I are sitting down negotiating. You are Miss D or D, and I'm just Raven. It's not I'm Sir Raven, and you're like, and
Mhm.
I'm D. No, no, we are equals.
But then
We
we
are
talk like
equals.
that's a big thing with even consent, like different power dynamics, and
Yes,
who has the responsibility of making sure that the power dynamics are equal when you are negotiating, and
exactly.
make sure the person, maybe if you don't have as much power, making sure that your needs are being heard. And
Mm-hmm.
people who have the power just understanding, like, no, we be equal right now. Like you said, like, well, I'm going to sit at the table and let you know
Mm-hmm.
this is D and Ray.
Right,
That's who's talking at the table. I want you to bring everything right now. Tell me
right.
your wants, needs, desires, your fears, because when we get in
Mm-hmm.
there, it's going to, we're doing something else. But right now, let's have the conversation so we can even decide if we're going to get there. I don't
Right.
know what I don't know.
Exactly. And even after you do that negotiation that first time, and if you're planning something for whenever, you may have a thought in between things. So I always like to check in. We still on?
Mm-hmm.
Everything we spoke about is still good? Because something may be like, well, yeah, remember when I said I wanted you to throw me to the ground and put your foot, it may be like, I don't want that. And it's like, okay, I won't do that.
Right.
But I won't do it, right?
Or you get in a situation
Because
you were so enthusiastic about something, then you get in, it's like, this is not what I wanted at all. I feel like this is not the feeling I wanted to have. Stop. Or maybe, and this is a good one, like how you could just change your mind. Like, why is that so? It's a big deal. Like, even people like, well, I wanted this, and I'm a hunter. Like, I want to get something, then I get it. I'm like, this ain't what I wanted. Oh shit. But then
mm-hmm,
I
mm-hmm,
felt guilty because like they was minding their business. You pursued them and now you're in a situation that you don't like. But it's
mm-hmm.
okay. It's like, why should I suffer through the situation? Because I'm the one who asked for it. And a
Right,
lot of people
exactly.
hear these stories from other people. It's like, well, I didn't say no. I didn't want to tell them that I was feeling uncomfortable because I asked for this.
Yeah.
Like, nah, buddy, you can change your mind at any time.
Yes, yes, exactly. Exactly. You can change your mind at any time. And even that is like, okay, like I said, we planned it, we talked about it, the day is coming, we do a check in, and you decide you don't want to do something. But also, The top may be like, you know what, I'm not feeling that. So I don't really want to do that. And that's a boundary that I don't want to cross, at least for myself, as being a top. So let me see what's going on. Oh, Star, you answering things? Thank you, Star. You're the best. Handler, hi, Handler. Oh, Handler Chai. I think I heard something about this Handler Chai person. I've always been curious about honorifics. Is it more respectful to ask someone to call them by their honorific or just use it by default? Uh-oh, I lost Miss D. Hopefully she'll come back. And it's just me. And Star says, I usually ask what a person would like to be called as long as it doesn't affect the other person. Yes, this is true. And sometimes, like I was saying a little bit earlier, if you're, funny story. So I met someone way back in the 90s when dinosaurs roamed the earth. And I met her, and she was introduced to me as Lady Sabrina. Till this day, I call her Lady Sabrina. It got to the point where they came to my job, and I introduced to my coworkers. I was like, "Oh, this is Lady Sabrina," right? And to this day, they still call her Lady Sabrina. Just a little funny aside. But then that's why I said earlier, when I introduce myself, I will give you the out. You can just call me Raven. Some people just prefer to call me Sir. It's fine. Or SR. It's fine. Or you can just ask, like, what would you like to be called? And because I may ask you, what would you like to be called? Because I'm going to take at face value that what you say you want to be called is what I'm going to call you. So anyway, hopefully, yes, I know you met Izuli. That's. I have eyes everywhere. No, not really. Yes, Izuli told me they met you yesterday. I'm really sorry. Real quick before Miss D comes back. I hope Miss D comes back. Since I have you here, Handler Chai, how was the event yesterday? Was it fantastic? I heard it was a great boot blacking event with Deja. Deja did a boot blacking fundraiser to, that's okay, come back, to raise money because they are trying to have boot stands built for the community to use when they're doing an event or something like that, which is really exciting. Yeah, it was really nice. We really have to get together. Hopefully, maybe they will be at. You said you were stripping and you raised some money? Oh, no, that doesn't say that. It says it was good and she raised her money. Oh, I thought she raised money with you stripping. Because then I would be sad if I missed that. But yes, I don't know. I think maybe she was, yeah, that's really great. Yeah, yeah, I'm sure. Oh, wait a minute. Now y'all are being funny again. Okay, I accepted Miss D. Hopefully she'll get in again. But yeah, I'm glad that the class went really good and the event went good as a fundraiser. Oh, there you go. I'm glad people got out to go and support her. Oh, March was stripping. Oh, oh, okay, got it, got it. Okay, you're back.
Sorry about that.
It's okay. You have lousy internet. So.
Yeah, I'm in the basement right now.
Yeah. Well, we have a few more minutes. You were talking about, the great communication that one should work on constantly. Like working on one's communication is a constant that we always have to work on.
Oh,
And you were talking about this book that you said you have. Tell me more about this book. You said you would write down your boundary or whatever.
my
Question of
boundaries book.
yeah.
It was just me, it was a reminder. Um, so something like one of the things I tell people, like if they're not just if they're new, but know your own boundaries before you're going into situations. You don't want to sit there and negotiate your boundaries, especially for pickup play or even at the diner. Should not be the first time you're thinking about all these things that
Mm.
that you're trying to do. So you sit down by yourself. So for me, I was married for a long time. I was in relationships for a very long time. So my boundaries always included somebody else. So it's like, how we working together, like what can play, like, okay, well, I would love to do this, but I'm married. So, this is an agreement that I made with my partner to not do outside. It was me sitting down with myself. It's like, what is my boundaries for me? Because I don't have no part, like nobody outside of everybody else, outside of the community, my family, my children, whatever. Just what is my boundaries? So I sat down and I was writing them down. And it's like, even like something would come up. It's like, I don't know, I ain't like that. Like sometimes like I was letting things go away. Like that was one of the big things. Like my family, Black people, they like to hit you when they talk.
Uh-huh.
That made me so uncomfortable for years, but it didn't like until 2020, I was able to say something like, wait, hey, I don't like that. Don't hit me. It's because I just felt it was cultural. Like I'm infringing on their culture. Like why, I always do this, but I always didn't like it. So it was like, I don't want to have conversations with people who want to hit me.
But here's the thing. Then sometimes you get people who say, well, I was doing it all this time and you never said anything. Why are you saying something now? Because now they get like a little defensive, right?
And for me, like that's a perfect example. Like my struggle, even to this day, I'm really good at making and committing, sticking with boundaries of people I've just met. So anyone after 2018, we good. I'm good at setting those boundaries. So people who I've known for 20 years, for me, it's still like I'm practicing. I still have to work on those skills sometimes. But then I have like my support system. They'll call me out like, you ain't sticking to your boundary. Cause like it's a work in progress. So like who's checking on me too? So who knows your boundaries? So like I have like Mo, beautiful. I know you did a good job and everything, but why are we still talking about that? So like I'll make a boundary, and then 2 weeks later I'm still like, damn, my daddy will never talk to me again. I should have said that. It's like you did it, but then the aftermath. It's a continual work in progress. So let's give yourself grace. So maybe within my boundary book, like maybe I said something, I get outside and I come home the next day, it's like, well, you didn't stick to this one. But it's like we don't move the goalposts. Like it's still the goal. I fucked up today, or I give myself grace. Like, okay, well, why? Or maybe I was feeling shy that day, or I didn't feel like going back and forth with somebody. And I was just like, you know what? But it's still understanding.
And sometimes I think, and this may be, I don't know if I'm gonna be canceled, but sometimes I think that I don't want to say this word, but I'm gonna say it. I'm gonna say it, but sometimes I think that people expect female-bodied people to just accept a thing, to be the receiver of a thing, and not say, hey, don't do that shit. Like, I don't like that. Like, please don't do that. You know what I'm saying?
And then people who are socialized female who also feel that I have to say yes. So both of us, like the person you think they're supposed to say yes, and then even people who are female bodied, or even if you were socialized as a woman, because I know some my trans friends, and they still have that feeling from, because that's how you were brought up. You still have that, like you fight against that. Like let's let that go. But it's not just like I learned the thing. I learned I'm supposed to say no, and now I'm going to do no. It doesn't work that way. We still have these messages in our brain that's telling us to say yes, or I'm a bad person, or I'm supposed to do this. So let's get rid of those stories, and then who do we talk to? It's not like a one and done thing. I said. So like even when I do the workshops, so I'm doing a free workshop coming up for just Black women. So we could talk, like we have experiences that's different and it's very unique to just us about consent, boundaries, how we show up in the world. So let's share space and hold space for each other. Like I said, like I still struggle with this because I can sit and talk and we go over the lessons, but then now knowing something and doing something is two different things.
It is. It's true. That's true.
So that's why we got to keep on trying and keep on talking about it.
Yeah. And even with me, I know I struggle. Like I had a meeting earlier with someone who I've been in spaces with, but we really haven't really had a conversation. Right. And so we're getting ready to have this conversation. And in my head, I'm already saying, let me put this disclaimer out. I said, listen, this is my voice. Like, this is the way my voice sounds, right? And when I speak, sometimes people think I'm being harsh. And I'm not being harsh. I'm sometimes direct, and I'm not being direct to hurt a feeling or whatever. I just need to say what I need to say. Because me being vague, sometimes people miss things when you're vague.
Right.
So I just need to kind of like direct. And I find that, or I found, I should say, like in corporate, me speaking a certain way
Mm-hmm.
always made me, oh, why are you being a bitch? Oh, why are you being harsh? Why you know, it's like then I became I don't even want to say it, but you know, I became that woman, you know, like
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
difficult. And now I'm either setting a boundary and I'm saying, please don't do that thing. And these are the reasons why I don't want you to do it. Right.
Right.
Or trying to set a boundary and I'm setting this boundary because it may be triggering or traumatizing, but now I have to explain the trauma to you, which in turn
Is
traumatizes
re-traumatizing yourself. Mm-hmm.
exactly. You know, and so because we learned about consent and having those biases in our head that we have to grow out of a certain thing, doesn't mean that the people that we're dealing with have learned it also.
Right.
So they, you know, we took the class,
Mm-hmm.
but they didn't take the class. You know what I'm saying? Like we took the class, but our family member didn't take the
Right.
class.
Because you still got to
So
show them
now,
now I'm trying to do these new skills, but the people who've been doing the same thing, they the same person, acting the same way.
yes,
So
and
sometimes
then you
you
become
have
the
to ease it in. It's like, I'm not going to be this whole person. Let me just sprinkle a little bit here, put a little bit here. Like, sometimes we have to baby steps with our family or the people that are closest to us. Whereas, like,
yeah,
other people, it could be more,
yes, and also realize that you can take the baby steps and all of that, and that still may not work. So you have to also accept that you may not get the result that you really think you may want it. The result that you think you want may not be
what happened,
what you.
right? Yes, you may not get the intended result. But you also may not have, there's certain people I'm no longer in communication with. Like, you no longer have access to me. Like, we tried these steps. I'm changing. I told you this is my new boundary. You weren't able to, like, because you've been hanging out since, 90s now, whatever. And now, like, oh, now you want to change? Oh, how about this? You lied to my partner for me back in 99. Why are you going to lie to my partner now? It's like, I'm not doing, like,
You're not doing that.
I was. We were some ancient people back then, and I'm not that person no more. Like, and I'm sorry, you're still there, but
Exactly.
I'm not going to lie for you.
Yeah, exactly. And Edberto says, and knowing when to leave, right? So you know, it may be hard. It may be, you know, it's hard, right? But
Right.
it's like, who's more important? Is it more important for me to protect myself, my peace, and stand on my integrity or whatever? Or is it more important for me to continue
To
letting
maintain this relationship that's not serving you.
right? You know, and I'm saying it's hard. It's not the easiest thing to be like, fuck you, I'm out. You know, I mean,
And
I
it
guess
is
for
not.
some
But believe me, I will tell you, it is not hard.
well, I mean, you know, I think for some people it's not hard. But like you saying, if you were talking about 1999 and you lied for this person and this and the third, it may be hard to be like, you know what, I'm good, we're done.
Oh, I mean,
You know,
it is hard. I mean, it's not easy. I didn't mean to say it's not hard. It's not easy.
okay, yes, it's not
Oh, yes.
easy.
Yes. Y'all been rocking together. You have history, memories. And you like, what if it's somebody in your family,
Mm-hmm.
like your spouse? Now, maybe like you learn some new things, and like, I've been showing up in this marriage or this dynamic or this whatever for this long, and now I'm realizing like I haven't been respected this whole time. So
Mm-hmm.
now 15 years I've been with this person, I'm like, they don't respect me. So now I have to walk away. Is that easy?
Mm-hmm.
Like, you found your voice, but now I got to leave this person who was not with the
Yeah,
program.
but then you also have the option. I mean, I think that's like the last option, but you also have the option in between that of trying to get this person to find their voice as well, so that we can
Right.
move differently. You know, that's what I mean. You can do that as well.
But if
But
that doesn't, I'm talking about if it does, like, no, you tried, we didn't have the conversation, we did the, different steps, and I was like, well, you still doing this, and I'm no longer with that.
yeah, yeah, and those things can be difficult.
Oh, yeah.
And even those conversations can be difficult, right? Right, because you've been communicating a certain way for all this time in your relationship or your dynamic, and now all of a sudden you changing, and it's like people may be like, now that you hanging out with so and so, all of a sudden
Uh-huh.
you like, how are you mad at me because I went to therapy? You know what I'm
But people
saying?
are. And then if you ever think about a friend that maybe changed something about themselves and maybe they'll no longer work for you. Because I've been on the other side of it where somebody changed something. I'm just like, dang, like I love that for you, but it no longer works like for us. So
Mm-hmm.
maybe me stop drinking. I know people like, oh, but you was my buddy. We every Thursday we used to go such and such. And I'm
Yeah,
like, well, I no longer do
yeah,
that. Like, can you still be my friend?
yeah.
I've had those conversations with some people that I was really heavy drinkers with. And some of them we've been able to maintain friendships with, and some people I had to part ways because maybe that was the only thing we had in common. But
That's true.
so it was like, well, I feel bad, like, Dad, you were so live, you were so fun, but now, like, you don't want to hang out with me, but I have to accept that. Now, I'm no longer part of that crew.
Right,
It's
that's
sad.
true. And you could be fun and all of those things and not be drinking. Like, I mean, you know, you can.
You can, maybe. Some people. You
Well,
never
no,
told
I'm
me
just
why.
saying, if that was the only thing you had in common, then that's
Right.
different. But if
Yeah.
if there was more to you than just drinking, you know,
Mm-hmm.
I can find that within you to have fun. It may just be different.
Right.
It may not be the way it was before. And if I'm your friend, I'm gonna move. Which, if I want to be in your life in that way, I'm gonna move a little bit differently and do what I need to do. And and this person says, send them a handout and move on. We teach each other to grow, but it is all at the expense of our wellness. Then you got to reimagine that connection. That is very true. You do. You have to reimagine it. And so, you know, and then even so, when you're talking about friends and things like that, it may be like, well, we may need to take a step back and reevaluate and then come back. Because when you're first breaking up with someone, right, it may be kind of difficult. You know what I'm saying? It's hurt. And then you may have to clear your head and then come back. And if you have the opportunity, I should say, to come back and then have a conversation that is very different.
But see,
And
like,
then if
this is
it
where
can't work,
the consent skills do come into place. Like, I think about consent, yes and no, but this is part of consent as well. How do we still maintain connection being the most agreeable the most agreeable between the two of us? Before, I felt like when we no longer get along or something happened, I just had to get rid of people in my life. But it's like, how can we still negotiate? How can we still talk about how we can still interact without these extra things going on? So maybe somebody used to be your play partner you was romantic with, but I'm no longer romantically involved, but I still want to do the play part. For me, I was like, okay, so that that person no longer in my life. But it's like, no, we can have this conversation. Oh, this is the way I feel now. Let's shift and negotiate what still works for both of us. So that's consent. Like now, I don't have to have a friend maybe that they stay party every night. That's not my lifestyle, but we still enjoy talking about pottery on Thursday. So maybe I'm not a part of it with them anymore, but now we still have this pottery connection. How can we still maintain connection without me sacrificing my health, without them feeling like they're giving up something of theirs?
Exactly. This is very good. Wait a minute, we have something else. This is a nice conversation. Anyway, Hannah says, I had to have this conversation with my partner, Pup, of understanding that we have different interests and wants in our kink journey when things became strained. Communication matters so much. This is very true. Because sometimes people think it's an attack on them. And not, you know what I'm saying? It's like, no, what I'm saying is, like with your example with drinking, my boundary is I don't drink anymore. So this is not an attack on you because you drink, right? I mean, like you like to wear the color green, and I wore green too sometimes when we were going out. We were met. I just don't want to do that.
I don't want to green no more.
Right. This is not an attack on you. It's just that we just don't do those things anymore. And I think it takes a level of emotional intelligence to understand that, maybe not like it, but respect it.
Right. And like hearing no graciously, that's one thing we practice a lot of times. Like I said, people are really good at telling people, this is my boundary, this is what I want, this is what I don't want, but they're not as accepting of when it's somebody else. And I've been guilty of it too, like, because I'm like, oh, why? It means you must hate me. It's like, no, I said I don't want this act or a specific thing. I remember I had a scene, it was a more of an exploratory scene with a person I've known for a while, but we were just trying to see what kinks we like, and they didn't like none of the stuff that I like. Like, I wanted to do the thug stuff, and they were just like, oh, no, yellow, nope, okay, no. And I was like, no. They were like, I want you to do something with this, and I was like, I don't even really like that. So it was just a miss, but I remember the internal feeling, and I had to really talk to somebody about it, because I felt like I was having a brat moment. And I was like, but it was inside. I was like, but it's like, no, I respected their boundaries. Yes, of course, I'm going to not continue to do what I want, but it didn't feel good on the inside. And sometimes also the person may not be the person to talk to. Because now they're feeling bad, like I said no to these things, and now maybe I have to say yes because I made you so upset. So maybe that person may not be the person that's like that you need to get all this energy out. Because I was upset, but it had nothing to do with them. It's just because I went in my way. I can't get my way.
Right.
And I understood it, and I don't want them to change anything about what they did, because what they did was the right thing for their body. I didn't like it, and I don't have to like it, but I needed someone to talk about it too. Because I'm like, I don't need to be having a fucking meltdown when someone says, yo. Like,
right,
and I was
exactly.
like, well, maybe I need to process this a little bit.
And then even if you do that and you have that conversation, now that you're saying that person can feel as if you're trying to like convince them to do the thing. And
Yes, that's
really
why they may not be the person. Yes, exactly. So, yep. Then they're like, well, now the next time, because you were so mad about it the last time, I just let you do whatever to me. And then now 10 years later, you're the consent violator because we didn't have the proper conversation.
Well, let's wrap this up a little bit. But before we go, because I have another question. Keep talking and other things keep coming up. What is that? Is something in place when it's been investigated? The person says, yes, I did this thing. I've caused harm, right? I've caused harm. I did this thing. I didn't mean it. My intent wasn't that. What is in place for that person? You know, because now you can't unring the bell. That's why I said I don't do it, because people go to the internet and do a thing and fuck up your relationship or your reputation. And it's like, dude, all you have to do is come and talk to me. It might have just been a misunderstanding. So that has already happened, right? So what is in place, or what can a person do when that harm has already been done? Not the consent violation harm, the harm of the person going and telling the world that this person did this thing. What is in place for that person to, you know, come together and maybe have a conversation, get restitution?
So now you want to like, is it for the person who was harmed, or the person who maybe caused the harm? Now that
person who caused the harm.
So to their reputation, or for themselves? Because like I would say that they maybe need some more education, they need some accountability, maybe someone to come out with them, those kind of things. But for their reputation, that's when like the damage is done. So who's going to come out? The person who was harmed? We can't slap a person and tell them how to say ouch. So yes, that they have that right to go to the internet. That's their own experience. That's their story. We can put things in place, but we still have to remember we're dealing with human beings. Right. So now, is it part of an organization? So now I'm telling the organization first, like, we're dealing with this internally. There's no need to go outside. But like you said, once it's done, once it's said, it's said.
But so how does a person who has experienced that, what do you think when it comes to consent? Or maybe I'm not asking the question properly. Because I know of somebody who that happened to, and the person went to the internet, did the thing, right? And then all of a sudden everybody was like, oh, and the pitchforks came out. And then when they finally stopped doing that and had the conversation with the person, it was just a misunderstanding. That's what I'm saying.
But then now everything has been done, so that the restitution has to be just as loud as the offense, right? So now you publicly blasted out the offense. Now let's publicly have to blast out, and it has to be more, because you never see like a retraction in the paper, like it'd be the front page that something happened, and then when they find out something else happened, it'd be on page 8, so small, oh, a mistake. So no, when we're rectifying the mistake, it has to be just as loud or louder than the initial.
And sometimes you don't have control.
And that's some like the limitations we do have within doing consent and consent frameworks. And even if you want to have mediation, like what the person who was harmed doesn't even want to talk about it.
Exactly.
The person who did the harm, maybe they feel like it wasn't even that serious. I don't want to come to talk about that, because I walked past and touched the butt by mistake. I don't want to talk about it. Or, you know, I don't want to ever speak to this person again. So we're dealing with beings, so there are limitations to even when you have the best frameworks impossible. Humans, we have to still respect individuals' autonomy.
That is true. That is true. Okay, well, this has been wait a minute. Your sister is a yapping and a yapping. But when I wanted them to come on the live to talk, nothing. Yapping and a yapping.
a long documentation to have to read. But this is why, like, we try to, we're looking for the most consensual culture possible. It's not going to be perfect, but let's still work towards that. And that's what we're here for, to continue to work towards it.
This is true. So, Mrs. D, thank you so very much. People, please go to Miss D's link tree, or the House Supreme. Is it in the House Supreme's link tree? And see what Miss D is up to. Of course, in 2025, I have a wish list on the whiteboard of of things I want to do for BLX, and maybe we can do a workshop, and everybody could bring their book. It's like classes and sessions, and have that pre-work. So the pre-work may be write down all of your boundaries, and even see, now we're talking some more now, because even then sometimes you don't know you have the boundaries sometimes, and
that's why it's always been continuing to evolve. Like, my boundary book was not the same today as it was before, and maybe I had to take some off that I'm grown out of those things, and maybe I need to add some extra ones. That's just to protect me financially, mentally, spiritually, whatever. So our boundaries, we have some it's going to be like rigid, like this is going to be it forever. And then we have some stagnant ones, and that's okay. So this is not like a one and done thing. And this is why we're continually going over this, continually talking about this, continually educating ourselves. Like, it's never going to be like sex education. Like, you just have the conversation with the person one time and that's it. No, it's a continual conversation. We got to keep on, because things are going to change.
That's
true. But I like yesterday,
right?
ain't going to be maybe today. I mean, there's some new stuff.
Yeah, I was going to say, the sex you had when you were 18 is not going to be the sex that you have in, you know what I'm saying? When you're
right,
20,
40 plus.
Exactly. Anyway, again, okay, now for real, we're getting off.
All right.
Thank you so very much, Miss D. I will be in touch, of course. Everyone who joined us on the live, thank you so much for joining us. Do I have another live coming up? I think on the 14th. Yes, December 14th. The Kinky Copywriter will be on the live. It's going to be an IG takeover. I keep saying that. That's not an IG takeover. But I'm like, she's going to, I really hope you are on, because, she bullies me, and I don't know, and she's pretty. So
yeah, I'm gonna help you out.
Okay, but I will hope everybody have a good Sunday. I hope to see you next Saturday, same bat time, same bat channel. And until we meet again, thank you very much for your support. And Dee, have a great Sunday. I really appreciate having this conversation with you.
Well, thank you. I appreciate you as well for having me.
Okay, anyway.